There's Angela.
You're here.
Good evening, Taos Democrats. Thank you for joining us for tonight's forum for the District 41 House race. My name is Darien Fernandez. I'm the Taos County Democratic Party Chair. I want to thank Anjanette Brush, our Vice Chair, for helping with the technical aspects tonight and being our official timekeeper. Anjanette will be flashing a 15-second warning when the candidates are almost up with their time. And if she has to, she'll be pulling out her time's up card. And if that still doesn't work, then we've got a bike horn. And if that doesn't work, we've got a mute button. But we don't hope to get there. I also want to thank George Brown, our party treasurer and campaign director, who has helped with the logistics of this event, including sending out the emails to invite the candidates, to invite the public, and to help get the word. And also our secretary, Annette Arellano, who is also helping to get out the word for this and all of the other forums that we've had. This forum tonight is being recorded, and we will post a link to it on our website and our YouTube channel. And if you have friends or family members or neighbors who are unable to make it tonight, please look out for our email and share that link with them so that they can also view this forum when they get a chance. So District 41 encompasses primarily Rio Arriba County, but also includes a swath of Taos, mostly on the west side, and does have, you know, a few thousand voters in it. And of course, we hope that all of our legislators, in particular in the north, do work well together and approach things regionally. So, you know, even though Taos County only has a few thousand voters in this district, this race is important to us because there are voters represented from Taos County, but also what happens in the north knows no boundaries, as we've seen by the recent fires. So our candidates tonight for this forum include the current representative, Susan Herrera, and challenger, Marlo Martinez. They will be answering questions that have been put together by the moderators and from viewer submissions. And if there's time, we will take additional questions from the audience tonight. And in addition to that, candidates will each have the opportunity to ask at least one question of the other. Candidates will also have 90 seconds to answer each question. We will now start with the opening statements, and we will go in alphabetical order, and candidates will have 90 seconds per opening statement. And we will start with Susan Herrera.
Thank you. Thank you. Democratic Party, one of the best organized local parties, I think, in the state is the Taos Democratic Party. And I appreciate you having me here. Welcome to my opponent, Marlo Martinez, and to all the listeners here. I think the reason I know the reason I ran is because I'm really running on a platform of promises made and promises kept. When I ran 4 years ago, I was really looking at a lot of things that I thought were not going well in our state. And I promised to run on land and water reform, on educational reform, and rural development, local economic development in rural parts of our state. And I think I've kept good on those promises. In educational reform, I think we had the biggest session ever last year, huge raises for teachers, plus the 7% raise. We got 10 million for rural libraries. We now have free college tuition. We look like one of the best states in the nations now. We have the best college tuition prices. We have the most, we're paying the most for teachers now. And I think that's gonna be the underpinning of remarkable reform in education to come. Land and water reform, land grants got another 50,000. And we also got money for acequias and money for the Water Trust Fund. That was really important. And the education, I mean, the reform for economic development, that list goes on. And I'll probably talk about a little later in this session.
All right, thank you. Marlo Martinez.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with all of you. My name is Marlo Martinez, a lifelong resident, native New Mexican. My career has been as a small businessman for almost 45 years now. I've served 3 terms as the probate judge for Rio Arriba County. And in my past politics, I was in State Central Committee. I've been a lifelong Democrat, and I've also hosted the presidential headquarters for 2 Democratic presidential contenders. The last 2, Obama, and then prior to that, they were in my building. I donated the spot. I'm a family man. I have 3 children, and they're educated. One's a doctor, one's a businessman, and one's works at Los Alamos National Laboratory. I started my career off as a young man, and I retired. So I have a time on my hand right now as a public servant, which I've always been a public servant, to help with the needs that are, the great needs that are in my district, including Arroyo Hondo and Cuba and all of Rio Arriba County. There are, for instance, there was a tax rebate that just went out. I think the price tag was $700 million. I would have loved to use that money towards fixing community centers and building high schools and brick and mortar. But the legislature and the governor went ahead and gave a $500 rebate. I think the needs are great. My district is poor, and I think I'm best fit for this position. As a matter of fact, I have 10 years legislative experience where I worked for the legislature as an analyst and a reader.
Thank you.
So I got some good experience then. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Marlo. Your time was up. I apologize for cutting you short there, but we're trying to keep this thing on track. So this first question will go to you, though, Marlo, and it's quite relevant. So right now we've got the largest wildfire in the United States of America burning in northern New Mexico. And it has just crossed over into Taos County as well. And it's burned over 175,000 acres since it started. And more we are seeing intense wildfires across the West as we are seeing the results of a long-term drought. So my first question, which goes to you, Marlo, is: do you believe in human-caused climate change?
Yes.
Okay. Representative Herrera, do you believe in human-caused climate change?
Yes. Yes, climate change is real, and it's here. And the drought and these wildfires are just a consequence of human-caused climate change, and we need to address that and admit it as a country, as a nation, as a collective body. And I think we need to really focus on, as state legislators, on how we can utilize state resources and funds that we have and pair them with federal funding and get our state forests working side by side with our national forests to bring about the needed change we have in forests in the north, also all over the state, all over the country. Really, it's a problem everywhere you go. And if the largest fire in the nation right now we're facing, and we're all in the line of danger. I mean, Vadito, which is getting ready, is just 20 miles up the Bosque from me, along the river, along the Embudo River. So everybody is at danger right now in New Mexico.
May I?
Yeah. Each of you were given 90 seconds. So,
okay.
and you only took 10. So yeah, you've got like 80 seconds left on the clock for this one.
So a few weeks ago, we went and took a large donation to the Peñasco gym and the Las Vegas area. And then just this morning, I delivered another load of donations to Peñasco for the Mora residents and attended a statewide meeting at the Santa Clara. And I was instrumental in working with FEMA to get a rig of donations donated to Las Vegas, which was supposed to get there today or tomorrow. So I've done my part, and I continue to do my part to help the fire victims and the evacuees. And I'm helping to coordinate between the people over at the OK Owinge Casino so that they can get some of these donations to them because they're lacking in some of these goods.
Okay, thank you. So Susan, this next question goes to you. New Mexico is experiencing record budget surpluses, largely from oil and gas production, which do contribute to climate change. How can we move away from fossil fuels without significantly impacting our state's economy?
Thanks for the question. I think it's a careful needle that we have to thread. I mean, we are dependent on those resources, but in times of state surplus, I think we really need to work on renewable energy, funding that to as much as we can. We also, I think we need to put our money in that surplus money into rural infrastructure development, really. We don't have good water systems in the north. We all know that. I've been working on it continually for 4 years to get water infrastructure so that we have decent drinking water systems and decent wastewater systems. We have neither. This district has the most mutual domestic water systems, the most land grants, and the most acequias in all of the state. So when I came to the legislature, I thought I'd be working a lot on education. I work on education, but I have to tell you, most of my time is spent on water and water infrastructure. How do we create clean drinking water in rural communities that don't have access to that? And how do we do wastewater systems that are kind of high technology and top of the line? We have the money to do that. Now's the time to make that money work for really for rural New Mexico. And so I think that's my greatest challenge in the upcoming session, is pulling together the right people on appropriations, pulling the right people together in the environment and the state engineer's office to develop a plan, as we're planning now, to do that job for the future and begin now.
Thank you very much. So Marlo, the same question for you. And let me know if you'd like me to repeat it.
Go ahead and repeat it, please.
Okay. So New Mexico is experiencing record budget surpluses, largely from oil and gas production, which do contribute to climate change. How can we move away from fossil fuels without significantly impacting our state's economy?
So as you may know, the budget of the state of New Mexico is reliant on oil and gas by about, I think it's 40% of the budget. I think we need to carefully transition from oil and gas energy to renewable energy, subsidizing maybe the solar power to homes. I think that the surplus that you mentioned, like I mentioned earlier, the $700 million that was given away could have been used for those water domestic associations and infrastructures that are badly needed in all of our towns, including Espanola, in Chama, in Cuba, and Arroyo Hondo, and the needs that they require. As a businessman, I would have used that money to spend and the brick and mortar and the infrastructure is what I would have done. But yes, we should carefully transition from oil and gas to renewable energies, and that should be a priority.
Okay, thank you. So Marlo, this next question goes to you first. What would you consider to be a serious response to climate change by the New Mexico legislature?
Well, subsidizing solar energy at the federal level and the state level so that it's more affordable. That's one of the big ways in which we could be doing it. It's still not affordable to do this. So we're not really getting enough energy from the sun into our homes. I mean, think of it this way. We're still heating our homes with fire. That's kind of obsolete. and I think technology has come such a long way that it exists. And so that we should be using those alternative energy measures. I don't know that everybody's going to run to buy an electric car because of the cost and the fact that we don't have enough charging places. But like I said earlier, carefully transitioning from oil and gas to these renewable energy sources is one way that I would think to do. But I have experts that are on board that can tell us this. I don't know. I don't claim to know all the answers. I do say that I'm a common sense person, and we'll use common sense answers to do what's right for the people of New Mexico, so that we have clean air and clean water, and we continue the traditions that we've had in the acequias, and the growing, our foods, and going to the farmers market. These traditions that we believe in so strongly.
Okay. Thank you. So Susan, same question. What would you consider to be a serious response to climate change by the New Mexico legislature?
The way that climate change is wrapped up with our rural electric co-ops it's an interesting story. I mean, you almost have to have leadership at the local level. The Kit Carson Electrical Co-op is not only a model in the state, but a model in the nation. So I think if we could encourage all of our electrical co-ops to go in that direction, some of them are doing it. Some of them don't want to get into the renewable energy. They want to protect what they have on their own grid. So I think what you do is you just can't tell people to do something. You have to kind of reward them for progress. And I think that's what we need to do, is take really the Kit Carson model and see if we can't really address that in the most rapid way possible with the other electrical co-ops in our state. That would solve kind of our rural problems. I mean, and that's mainly, I think that's our biggest problem. I think the changes at PMM, there are a lot of changes going on simultaneously. There's a lot of input from the federal government. You could give a tax reduction on electrical cars. The Biden administration just put $1 million in to do charging stations in the north. So that's starting now as we know it. So again, I think we have to match what the federal's doing and work at the state level to see how we maximize the response to climate change.
Thank you very much, Susan. This next question goes to you first. Are you taking any campaign contributions from the oil and gas industry? And why or why not?
Not that I know of. I don't think I've gotten any so far.
Okay. So
and why are I not? I think when we work as legislators, and I'm just going to say this, I made my first political contribution as a gift to this campaign when I first ran, because I wanted it to be from my pocket and my husband's pocket, because I never wanted a lobbyist to look me in the eye and say, hey, I paid this much, where's my payback? Because I figure I already made more than most have given to me ever. And secondly, I work at this job year round full time without pay. So I think I'm doing more than my share, and I really haven't needed their money in the past. I don't expect I'll need it in the future.
So thank you. As a brief follow-up, Susan, given that the state's budget is comprised at least of 40% of oil and gas revenues, and you're not taking money from them that you know of, do you feel like you can adequately balance their interests versus the interests of others, including environmental groups?
I think you look at every vote as every vote, and you try and do the best job you can. Sometimes I voted with them, sometimes I voted against them. So it really just depends on the bill. And for those of you who don't know what happens in the lobbying world, a lot of lobbyists take a lot of money from a lot of different sources. And that's just the way they make their living. And I'm not complaining about that, but I think a paid legislature would go a long way in rectifying some of these problems.
Thank you. So Marlo, do you take any more have you received any campaign contributions from the oil and gas industry, and why or why not?
Yes, I have. And like I said, we can't just abruptly shut off oil because they're a lifeline to New Mexico. But I'd like to mention that Javier Martinez and the speaker are donating money to my opponent, and they do take money from oil and gas. I just lost it. Hello? I just lost it. They do. Hello?
fine.
We're here. We can hear you.
Yeah, this Adobe thing came up, and let me get my IT guy here, and it threw it. Let me get rid of it. Hold on one second. There it goes. The Adobe, you know how it downloads automatically. So I was saying that my opponent is taking money from the speaker and Javier Martinez, who do take money from oil and gas. So we can't abruptly cut them off. It has to be a transition. I think oil and gas can invest in renewable energies. I don't see why they can't. I think if they move towards renewable energies, they can still make money. But I want to do what's best for my district. That's my main concern.
Okay. So given that we are experiencing record drought in the West, and you have stated that you believe in human-caused climate change, is it a conflict of interest for you, or a conflict of principle, to accept money from the oil and gas industry at the same time that they're part of the human-caused climate change?
No, but we should hold them accountable, of course. But the thing is, like I said, they're 40% of our budget, and in Hobbs, in that area, they have a large oil revenue. What are we going to do about them? Or in the Jicarilla Apache tribe in Rio Arriba County, I am for fairness, and I think that they can invest in renewable energy and still make money at it. I don't see why they can't do that. I would like for them to do that.
Well, thank you. So this next question goes to you first, Marlo. If you're elected, what are your legislative priorities for the next session, which I believe is a 60-day session?
My main priority is to bring funding to my district. I've been out in the field and I see that there's a lot of needs. For instance, in Taos County and Arroyo Hondo, they have a center there that needs kitchen facilities for it to be active. There's a lot of complaints about the roads in that area that they need to be fixed. They're complaining about their roads. The cemetery still needs more money. I'm more about bringing funding to my district to repair infrastructure and to expand, making our community safe. Of course, youth programs, where we want youth programs, more youth programs in our communities. Early childhood education is good. And of course, protecting our secas and our land grants and our water rights. We have behavioral health issues involved in substance addiction, so we need more treatment. Broadband is still not a big thing yet in many communities. Graduation rates, we need more retention of teachers. The money that was funded to the teachers now, it's going to come out of some of their budgets, so there might be a special session just to help the teachers, the districts, because enrollment is lower because of the COVID. So there's issues going on with that. And of course, criminal justice reform. We need that this Supreme Court initiative that where they catch and release. So we have a lot of crime problems in our area, so we need to work on that.
Okay, thank you. So, Susan, if reelected, what are your legislative priorities for this next session?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm looking at millions and millions and billions of dollars really for water infrastructure in the state. I think that's the number one issue for our rural communities, for both Arroyo Hondo and Tres Piedras, Carson, go over the pass to Chama, TA. Everybody's talking about it. I got people money from capital outlay, so that it was like 50,000 or 25,000 to write the plan. What we need is a plan done. They need a shovel-ready plan with a preliminary engineering report done, so that when the big money comes down from the feds, that they are ready for shovel-ready projects and ready to go to the next step. So that's what I've tried to fund. I funded the community center in Arroyo Hondo 4 years ago. They had the problem. First, we had to get the title transferred. Then we had to get a lot of work done in between. So now we finally have the money. And they have the construction plan ready to go to build the bathrooms, and next it will be the kitchen. So the money's there. It just sometimes it takes people a matter of time, and of course COVID really shut down the whole state for about 2 years. But my big push is on rural water infrastructure, and this is getting ready again for this huge amount of infrastructure that's coming down from the federal level. So we have to organize. I've had 5 town hall meetings to show people how to access this money, so that when that money comes, they have the shovel-ready plan ready to apply for the next step, which is usually projects in the millions of dollars.
Thank you. So most of your district is Rio Arriba County. Part of it is Taos, Susan, and there are different needs throughout the district, different constituencies. The first part of this question is, how do you balance that between the counties that might have competing interests? And also, how much time do you spend in the parts of your district that are here in Taos?
Well, balancing, here's what I try to do. I try to work with all the county governments and all the town governments. So every year, kind of about this time of the year, right after the legislation is over in April and May, I go around to all the town councils and all of the commission meetings. And I kind of give everybody a legislative update. This is what happened. This is how I think things are going to change. And this is the capital outlay I brought to your district. This is what I would like you to help people get accomplished, because this is a group game, everybody. I can't do this alone. We have no staff. I work alone, but I try and go meet with everybody. And then I say, I'm going to come back in September. In August, I try to come back in August, because the ICIP reports are due in September. And that's how counties and cities justify their budgets when they go to the state and to me and to the governor for capital outlay and to our senators. So I do that, and then I keep real close contact with the senators who also represent the same districts, and my surrounding representatives, Christina Ortiz, Andrea Romero, Christine Chandler, all the people who we're either neighbors or some things overlap. And then we all get together and we work on capital outlay together, and what will be the most good for this county, and we call back and say, do you need this, or do you need that, or I can do this, or I can do that. So I try to keep a very open dialogue with everybody, frankly, on exactly how we can make this really small amount of money work in the best way possible for local governments.
So thank you. Marlo, same question. Much of this district is in Rio Arriba County. There is a sliver of Taos County involved, and your constituents have different needs, different priorities, sometimes competing interests. How will you work to represent all of your constituents, and how much time have you spent in Taos on the campaign trail this season?
Well, it's based on needs and working hand in hand with each community. I think the capital outlay is really a pittance of the amount of money that's necessary in my district. I think we need a lot more bigger money, as I mentioned earlier, to do some of the things that we have to do in this district, because it's a rather poor district. And the other part of the answer, as far as working with hand in hand with Bobby Gonzalez in Taos and Leo Jaramillo in Rio Arriba, I think Chama was removed from the district for whatever reasons. I have no idea. It should have been kept with Rio Arriba because it's part of our county. And we inherited Cuba now. Cuba has a lot of needs, but I think in being fair and listening to the needs of each community and just making a good business decision in what those needs are in terms of the water, as my opponent mentioned, the water needs are great. I think there's a lot of water issues coming down in my area in terms of Native Americans and adjudication. And I think it's a big deal. So I'm trying to pay attention and learn about those water rights and what's going on in the next few years. That Santa Fe is not there in a power grab and with the developers to take our water. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned that they don't get something worked out in the next 5 years, that the courts are going to make a decision with the Native Americans in our area that are claiming first rights. So there's a lot of issues that we have to take very close attention to so that we can keep our water, which is very precious, and we need it. And we're semi-desert, so we really have to pay attention to that.
Well, thank you, Marlo. So as a follow-up, how can the state legislature help balance and plan for an increased demand on the water systems as we encourage growth in the area?
My turn, right? Hello? I'm first on this one? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the order. Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay.
Susan.
Okay, how can the state help with water priorities versus growth is what you're saying? I think if we work together like we're talking about, doing regional water management, I think there may be a capacity for both. I could be wrong because we really don't know at this point. I've got to tell you, we don't know what the cost. It's estimated to be $8 billion to do all the water work that we have. I think it's a lot more than that. But what we need to really do is work on regionalized water plans so that people have clean drinking water and good wastewater systems. And we just don't have that in the rural parts of our state. And that's what I'm going to talk about. The cities are fine. And, you go after big grants, and every big city has a few grant writers. We don't have the capacity to do grant writing in the North. That's why I funded with my fellow representatives, I funded North Central COG, the Council of Governments. I gave them $80,000 just to help with grant writing in rural unincorporated areas of this county, of unincorporated areas of Sandoval County that belongs to the 41st District, of Arroyo Hondo, the Taos County, and it's all unincorporated, and Rio Rivas. So now we have we have 5 grant writers on the COG team that are set up to begin that. That money will flow through in July, and then we can look what's coming down at the federal level. I've talked to Congresswoman Teresa Ledger Fernandez. We're going to have some joint hearings around how we weave together this local funding with the state and federal funding to really pull the money in that we need.
Thank you. So Marlo, same question.
It all goes back to the funding. I mentioned that the capital outlay is not nearly enough to fund very much. So this chance in getting the federal money with the COVID money and the infrastructure bill is necessary, because wastewater, like for where I live, I have my own sewer, but it's polluting the ground because they recently paved my road, but they didn't put new sewer pipes underneath. There was lack of planning. I think there's a lack of planning. I think these cities are asking for money to do things, but again, the grant writers aren't there. They're not getting the grant writers. It's leadership and vision. And as a private sector, I'm good at that because I had to fend for myself. I wasn't subsidized. I made payroll. So water projects are priority, and I agree with Susan on that. But we need to take that money that's coming down the pike and of course listen to the needs of the communities to see what water projects they need, because there is a shortage because we're in a semi-desert area, right? So it all amounts to the dollars is what I'm saying. And I think there's ways in the state not spending so much money and things that they don't need as much to prioritize water rights and water issues.
Thank you. So Marlo, this next question goes to you first. Earlier, you mentioned that you felt the money that was that's going to be given back to New Mexico residents in rebates could have been better spent on infrastructure. What do you tell a New Mexico resident who's looking forward to that rebate check because they're having to deal with inflation?
I would say that one trip to the grocery store and your $500 is gone. I would say that it's better to invest 700 million and leverage that 700 million with the federal government or other entities to get over $1 billion so we can fix our problems in our state. And if the government hadn't been spending so much and printing the money, we would have not have such high inflation. I saw that coming 1 or 2 years ago, where all this money was being printed and given away to everyone. I think we should be a little bit more conservative with our money so that we can use it for the right purposes.
Susan, you voted for the bill. What's your take on it?
You know, I think I know we have a lot of poor working families in my district. I mean, that's just how it is. And, you know, could they use another 500? Absolutely. Don't forget that the money was cut off after COVID, where families were getting a monthly allotment. I think it was about $300 per kid, and that had been cut off. So I think as state legislators, when we are faced with a huge surplus, yeah, you can do it you can put it into infrastructure, and we will, and there's more infrastructure coming down the pipe. And I think right now we needed to take care of poor working families, and that's kind of who I represent, poor working families. So, you know, 500 might not mean the world to everybody on this Zoom, but it sure means a lot to a family that's trying to decide to pay the rent or the grocery bill, or maybe a medical expense. So it's a constant juggling act as a legislator. And we did have a huge surplus, and it was the biggest surplus we've had in a long time. And for those of you who don't know, we talk about an $8.5 billion budget. If you put in, transportation money, if you put in Medicare money, if you put Medicaid money in, we make decisions on all of those things. If you put that into the budget, it's more like a $25 billion budget.
Thank you, Susan. And this next question goes to you. So your opponent just mentioned that we should be more conservative with our money. New Mexico is sitting on like $20 billion in reserves. At what point do we start looking at that and investing in some of these infrastructure needs and social infrastructure needs throughout the state?
Well, it's a great question, and it's hard to answer. I just want to tell you that 4 years ago, we went into special session with the most money that we've ever had, and we spent like crazy, and then we were called back into special session because COVID had started, and the prognosis was just it was doomsday, that we were just going to go down. And this state has had a period of these huge fluctuations in oil and gas, and then huge fluctuations in our state budget. So, you know, 1 year we'd be hiring people, and the next year they'd be firing people. It's ridiculous. So I actually think creating a reserve of 20 billion, although it sounds impossible, 25%, was really a good idea, because we really haven't even had a chance to test that reserve. If you want to know the truth, that really hasn't been tested. So I think we cautiously go in that direction, maybe bring it down a couple billion. It seems ludicrous to say this, but I don't know what the formula will be. I mean, I think we address that as a legislature every year. We have great economists in this state. We look pretty good for the next 5 years. That's what everybody should know. Should we lighten up on that reserve? Possibly. I actually think it's going to be hard to spend all the federal money that comes in the right way that does the most good. I think that's what we've really got to work on is getting people in place at state government who know how to use that money wisely and get the job done.
Thank you. So Marlo, as you've mentioned that we should be conservative with our money, and we're sitting on $20 billion, and many would say that we're a beggar sitting on top of a pile of gold. And we're seeing billions of more dollars come down the federal pipeline. And we're identifying all of these needs in our communities. At what point do we stop being conservative which we've done with our money, which we've done for 40 years, 50 years, and has led to such reserves, and actually start investing back in our communities.
Well, I'm going to back up a little bit. My opponent said for working people. Well, she just voted to raise gas tax 30 cents a gallon. I don't know how that helps working people, but conservative, I mean, I don't know that people trust Santa Fe with spending that $20 billion and bringing it down, especially when they just gave away $700 million. So I say use the money, but use it wisely, and not, not use it for whatever reasons they, use it for good reasons. But I would take care of that money and use it for something, like I said, the actual needs, which whatever they are for each community.
So thank you. Money is a big topic. It's one of the primary duties of the legislature. Then we get into other things that the legislature votes on that relate to values. So, Marlo, being a lifelong Democrat, as you've identified, and having part of your district in Taos County, have you read our Taos County Democratic Party platform? And have you read the state party platform? And what of that do you agree or disagree with?
Well, I'm from the Democratic Party of before, and I haven't really read your platform, to tell you the truth. I'm sorry about that. I would like to read it. All I know is that I'm living from life experiences in myself as being a family man, and myself as being a businessman, and myself has been involved in the community forever to see what the needs are. I'm a landlord, and I see that people need places to rent. Real estate is out of hand and people can't afford it. People don't want to work anymore. It's hard to find people. Restaurants are closing all over the place. In Espanola, 2 or 3 are already. In Ojo Caliente, another area, they're going to close an old restaurant that's been there forever. I just think there's things are getting harder and harder. They're not getting any better. I mean, you say there's a lot of money coming down the pike, but things are getting more difficult. When I saw those poor people today at the fires, where are the reserves? I talked to the deputy chief of staff of the governor, and they said, well, maybe they should have contingency reserves for these people so that they can have some money when these kinds of fires happens, so we can help them. People need money right now, and those people's houses have burned down. Where is that money going to come from? So the needs are great, and I don't know that they're spending money on the actual needs that we need. And to go back to your question on the platform, well, I'm glad to look at it, but I haven't really seen it.
Thank you. So Susan, have you read our Taos County Democratic Party platform and the state platform? And what do you disagree or agree with?
I read the Taos County, I apologize, 4 years ago. I haven't read it this year, so I need to do that too. And the state party platform, same thing. I'm usually in agreement with the state party platform. And as I recall, it was the same with the Taos, but for the record, I will read that again and give you a response. I just want to talk about money and, how you manage money. And you said, I want to make a big correction, because we've been talking about a $20 billion reserve. Excuse me, it's a $2 billion reserve. It's a 25% of our total budget, which is around $8 billion. So we kind of got off on that. And I just want to correct that. $2 billion is a lot of money. Can we go into special session and help families in fire relief? You have a system of FEMA. You have the Federal Emergency Management organization. They come in to states. I was with them in Cerro Grande Fire. They know what to do. I will have a credit unions at this Saturday's meeting on predatory lending to help people get out of these debts. And some of the credit unions are putting out loans of up to at 0.01% for emergency loans for families that have been caught in the fire. So I think the New Mexico community with FEMA is kind of rising up to this challenge, and we need to wait. You can't talk about immediately throwing money at a problem. We know we've got to get people housed in a fire situation and take care of them, and we're doing that. But it takes a schedule, and we're just going to have to get through it as best we can, and every week work on it like we are.
Thank you. And I do want to correct myself and clarify that we're talking about $2 billion in reserves, as Susan mentioned, but also almost $20 billion in permanent funds that we're sitting on as well, as a state, which puts us as one of the highest sovereign wealth funds in the world, and we're one of 50 states in the union and one of a couple of hundred countries on this planet. So financially we're doing pretty well. It's how we spend that money that I think is a big issue here. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about gun legislation. And Susan, this question goes to you first, right? Looking at the national news, it's quite predictable a horrific gun incident will happen sometime in the future here in New Mexico. The call for gun legislation will be fierce. And again, this is going to be one of those rural counties versus urban counties issues, if the media has their say with it, right? But we're talking about lives. And if legislation were proposed to ban assault rifles and large capacity magazines, would you support it? And what other measures would you support?
I would support that to the best of my ability. I would debate it. I live in rural New Mexico, and I'm just going to tell you, the first time I ran, I went to every single precinct in my district. We gathered with a group of 20, sometimes 60 people, and we had hour-long conversations, sometimes 2 hours. And in every single one of those meetings, somebody said, "What are you going to do about gun violence? What are you going to do about it? And how are you going to correct it?" And I said, look, when legislation comes before me to prevent gun violence, you can count on the fact that I will vote for it. And I voted for the red flag law. I support an end. We just have to end this crazy system that we have. And it is about the use of violent guns. By violent people, and we've got to stop that somehow. And I think the best way to do it is to outlaw these guns. Certainly these automatic rifles. They're ridiculous.
Thank you. So Marlo, if legislation were proposed to ban assault rifles and large capacity magazines, would you support it? And what other measures would you support?
So the question has to be asked, how many of those assault weapons are there out now? Do you guys happen to know if it's millions and millions across the country? Because who's going to end up with these assault rifles if not the criminals? They're going to end up with them, and they're the only ones that are going to have them. I'm for personal accountability in my whole system, that people are taking personal accountability. When you have behavioral issues that are causing these problems, we're not dealing with behavioral issues like we should. We're just putting people in jail and we're not paying attention to them. So one of my experts is a PhD on my core team, and we're having a town hall meeting here fairly soon to talk about behavioral issues. In my town of Espanola, you have a lot of that going on because of the drug issues, but the weapons themselves, I don't know that will solve the problem when you if you're not dealing with behavioral health issues and you get criminals with these automatic weapons only. And I think the Constitution says that are guns to protect us against the government, or what are the guns to protect us against? But I don't know how I would vote on that. My constituents are gun toting in Rio Arriba and the other areas. I've already checked with everybody, and they're for gun rights. That's what my constituents say so far.
Well, what about your constituents in Taos that are looking at gun safety legislation?
In Arroyo Hondo?
Yeah.
A lot of them have said they're for it. They haven't brought that up as an issue.
Okay. So as a quick follow-up, Susan, do you hear the same message when you are out and about in Rio Arriba County and Taos County?
I heard exactly the opposite message, and I was really surprised. I thought it would go the other way. It didn't. People were talking about gun violence, gun safety, and gun violence in our schools. I mean, everybody, mothers would come up and say, "This is the kid I'm worried about. this is a kid I'm worried about at our school, and I know that house has guns. Sheriffs would come up to me and say, we could have saved that life, but there was no way we could take a gun away. Until we can do that, people are going to be killed unnecessarily, and it's really a sad state of affairs. We needed legislation that will address that. You know, nobody's talking about banning hunting rifles. Nobody's talking about that. I get that. I have a hunting family. My family, you know, goes for the draw every year. They go out, they get an elk. It's a huge family tradition. I admire it. We know it. We love it. We all love a good elk steak. I mean, that's part of northern New Mexico. But assault weapons, I don't think so. I don't think so. You don't need an assault weapon to kill an elk.
Okay, thank you. So Marlo, another big issue right now is reproductive rights. We see the Supreme Court poised to strike down Roe v. Wade. And my questions to you are, do you support a woman's right to access abortion services? And if the Supreme Court strikes down Roe v. Wade, what can the New Mexico legislature do to protect access to reproductive health at the state level?
In New Mexico, I believe the question's been settled. 2 years ago, the legislature contemplated the possibility of Roe being overturned and passed a law settling this question, including protections for rape and incest and their health. And as you may know, the other states have not taken those situations into consideration in passing the restrictions. I think that a woman should make that decision between her family, her doctor, and her God, and make that decision properly.
Thank you. Susan?
Well, we're in agreement on this one. I absolutely think that decision belongs to a woman and her doctor, her family. It belongs to us. Those decisions are our decisions, and they should be made in with privacy, and they should be made thoughtfully and purposefully, and certainly we should protect that. And I'm proud that I was able to vote for that legislation. I thought it was important then. It's actually vital now. I mean, this Supreme Court I think it's made a grave mistake. I think they're very, very wrong on this. I think they're very out of touch with the country in general. I'm just going to call it the Trump Supreme Court. I think that's what it is, and we are in danger. But I think if you look at what most people think in this country, most people agree with both Marlo and I on this. We think it's a right that belongs to the family, to the woman, to the husband, to the partner. It's their decision to make with their doctor. I want safe, legal abortions if people need that, and some people really need that, and we ought to recognize that. Thank you.
So we've got a few minutes left. We haven't received any questions from members of the audience yet, at least not in the chat, and I haven't received any messages or anything like that. So we'll go to each of you asking a question of the other. So Susan, you can ask the question of Marlo.
Okay. And Marlo, this is just something I'm curious about. We've known each other for a long time. I'm really curious about why you're running against me, because I actually think we agree on about 95% of the issues. So I'm just trying to figure out why you want to replace me in the state legislature.
Well, it's not against you. It's for the position, first of all. And I think the voters deserve a clear choice. They should have a choice. And really, I think with my lifelong experience, I think I can do a good job. I believe I can do a good job, as my entire career has been striving to be a businessman and raising a family. And I think the needs are not being met at this point in time. Like I mentioned earlier, money's being spent where it should be spent on needs like these fire victims and our infrastructure and our wastewater and our water needs.
Thank you. So Marlo, you can ask a question of Susan.
I'm just wondering why Susan, you're telling the credit unions why I'm for payday loans. I'm not for payday loans, companies. Why would you be telling them this? It's come to my attention that you're telling them this.
I don't think I've told anybody that you're for predatory loans. I heard that you were supported by some lobbyists backing predatory lending. That's what I just heard in them, but I don't think I really said that to anybody. Maybe I did, I don't know.
Well, I've never received a penny from them. And my wife is a vice president of a credit union. And so I'm not for them.
Good to know.
So thank you both very much. The winner of this race will go on and become or remain the representative for District 41. There is no Republican opponent in November. So this primary is the ball game, folks. And it's important that you get out to vote and that you encourage others to do the same thing, and that we keep the momentum up going into November, as we've got to keep our governor in office so we can continue the progress that we are making as a state. We'll now move on to closing statements. But first, I want to invite both of you, Susan and Marlo, to our Sopapilla social that we are having this Friday in Taos off of Bent Street at 4 p.m. In advance of the New Mexico Federation of Democratic Women Spring Retreat. And all of you members of the public, please come out. This is more of an informal event. Everyone's invited, meet and greet, have some delicious sopapillas, and spend some time with members in the community in our beautiful downtown. And again, that's this Friday, the 13th, 4 p.m. Be there, bring your appetite. This is New Mexico. I know we can't say no to a sopapilla anytime it's thrown in front of us. So we'll see you there. And now we'll move on to closing statements. Susan, you'll go first, and then Marlo will close us out.
Well, I think I've done a good job in really representing the North and in bringing in needed priorities to this community. We had no drug treatment programs before I came to this office, and with working with the governor in capital outlay, we created Darren's Place in Espanola, which can house up to 100 people seeking drug treatment. And we got $950,000 for them to do a drug treatment center for women with children. I'm also working with Taos County now to do a detox center. Got some money for them. We think that will be up and running in less than a year. So I've worked real hard to work with communities on an individual level to place priorities and then to round up the money at the state capitol to make that happen. So I think I've been successful in that. I ended predatory lending from a rate of 175% to 36%. Yeah, that was a legislative battle that had been going on for 10 years. I was the person who got the job done. I have been named chair of Rural Development, Land Grants and Cultural Affairs Committee, and it's because the leadership thought I could do a good job in really working with those communities and addressing the problems in those communities to bring substantial development to rural communities. And the list goes on, but I actually think I've done a good job for the North. I'm proud of my record. I'm proud of what I've accomplished, both before office and now. I guess my time's up and I'll let it go. Thank you all for coming to this debate.
Thank you, Susan. Marlo?
Sure. And Susan, the drug rehabilitation center that you authorized to be a nursing home, and there were over 300 signature petitions not to have it next to an elementary school. I think you aroused those people so much because it's right next to the elementary school. And on the idea of land grant, your speaker eliminated that committee, but where there was such a backlash and uproar that it was reinstated and you were made chairwoman. Let's set the record straight. I think that, and I know I can do a better job because I have the business experience, I have common sense, I know the needs of the people, I'm a native Northern New Mexican. I know Taos County. As a small businessman, I traveled to Taos every single week for years and years and years, and to Cuesta and Red River and all of those areas selling office supplies and copiers. And I know the people there. I've retired since, so I don't know as many people, but I'm a family man. I've been married for almost 30 years. And I love my community. And I just don't think we're moving fast enough in the right direction. I know in my area, we're not. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Sure, 15 seconds.
I just want to say that both the county and the city approved of Darren's place being built there. I did not close a nursing home. The nursing home closed itself. We had a what was a 300,000 square foot building that was empty and being occupied by drug addicts. I got the money to change that around, and there's been not one single incident of any problem at the elementary school level. I just want that to go on the record. And I too have built businesses in northern New Mexico. I started the Lano Foundation. We started with 1 million. I ended up raising 140 million. I handed out 60 million to the northern New Mexico communities, and I left an endowment of 80 million. That's well over 100 million now. Before that, I started the Northern New Mexico College Foundation, and I helped start the Taos campus. So I've certainly had my experience in northern New Mexico too, and think I've contributed a lot to the North in my 33 years here.
Okay, thank you. So Susan, you kicked this off with the opening statement. Marlo, you were promised a closing. You get 15 seconds as well, and then we will call it a night. And thank you both.
Yeah, the tax dollars that provided all of this money were not from your pocket. They were from tax dollars that were given and set up. And the foundation at the college, Northern, my wife sat on that board for many years, like she sat as president of the United Way board. So we're involved in our communities to the extent of all the way through. And I've been in every committee or anything many committees to help. And I still continue after all of these years, but I would appreciate all of your support, and my doors are open. I'm accessible, 927-1234. That's my phone number. If you want to call me, I will be more than happy to sit down with all of you and discuss these issues further and to listen to your needs. Thank you very much, and God bless everyone.
Thank you both. Have a great night.